Hello everyone and welcome to our free preview video of my best-selling online course, the Complete Android Developer Course, Beginner to Advanced. Now my name is Joe Paris and I am now serving more than 110,000 unique students in over 40 courses online. Now, in our free preview video, you are going to gain over 2.5 hours of video tutorials showing you how to develop your very own Android applications from scratch. Let me show you exactly what you're going to learn in this tutorial. We're going to start with the navigation drawer, and you're going to learn how to design the pizza application. Now, my co-instructor, Ashu Pawar, is actually going to be teaching you how to use the Android applications. You're going to gain the ability to learn for free, and we're going to show you some of our most advanced projects here on YouTube. Now, if you really like our advanced projects, you can feel free to join our course at any time. All you have to do is click the links below in the description, and you will be able to instantly enroll in our course. Now, our course is packed with material. It's over 17 hours long, and it has over 143 lectures in it. Also, it has more than 20,000 unique students and growing each and every day, and is one of the best rated Android application courses online today. Here are some of the reviews from some of the real-life students who have taken this course. Great. So far, nothing objectable. Details are instructed. Good. Seems pretty straightforward so far. Thank you again, Ashutosh and Joe, for this simple and excellent course I'm still in the process of learning. So we really appreciate all of our students, and more than half of our students have rated this course as a 5-star course. Now, that's not all that you're going to get for actually enrolling in our course. You get to work with Ashutosh and I and ask any questions you would like in our course. So, without further ado, I just wanted to introduce you to myself and Ashutosh. And also, we wanted to give you these free lectures for you to watch at any time. And if you really enjoyed the lectures, we invite you to join us in the course. All you have to do is click the links below, and we'll see you in the course. Thanks again, and enjoy the video.
Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn something about the navigation drawer. So in this tutorial basically we are going to create a project for a pizza application which basically includes a navigation drawer as a means for the user to navigate through the application. So the first thing which we need to do is that we need to create a brand new project in Android Studio. So select this option. And let's name this application as, let's say, my pizza app. Click next and make sure that you have selected API level 15 or above. Then click next. And in this case, instead of going with a blank activity or an empty activity, what we are going to do is that we are going to select an activity which is called as the navigation drawer activity. Now, if you are confused like what is a navigation drawer, so this is basically what a navigation drawer looks like. So basically we have a drawer which automatically pops when we click a button here or whenever we drag it from the left hand side. So this is what basically is a navigation drawer, and basically we are going to go with this activity. Now also make sure that if you are using an Android Studio version which is lower than 1.5, then you might have a problem when we select the navigation drawer activity. So make sure that you are using the Android Studio version which is 1.5 or above. So as long as the version is 1.5 or above, you should not have any problem. So basically we select this activity, then click next, and let the name of your main activity be main activity, then finally hit finish. So as you could see, the project has been loaded, but the thing is that whenever we try to create a new project in Android Studio, there are always going to be rendering problems, and I hope that it gets fixed in the next version of Android Studio. But for now, what you could do is that in order to resolve this issue, you could just go to build, and you could either you could select this option which is called as rebuild project. So once you click it, as you could see, nothing happened even if we rebuild the project. In this case, what we do is that we simply save the project and we are going to exit out of Android Studio and we are going to reopen it again so as to solve this issue. So as you could see, when we restarted Android Studio, everything is back to normal and we could actually view the contents of the navigation drawer. So the next thing which we need to do is that we need to go into this app folder, and when we switch to this Java class, inside it we have the main activity which is nothing but this. So if we have a look at the contents of the main activity, you could notice that there are a lot of things in this activity which were not actually present in a blank activity. And that is because this is a navigation drawer and it needs to handle certain things so that it could perform correctly. Another thing which we will notice in this is that when we go to the resources folder, and in the resources folder when we switch to layout, as you could see there are like 4 files in there. So if we switch to the first file, this is our activity main, and if we switch to design, as you could see, this is what an actual let's say navigation drawer looks like. So this left part right here is basically the navigation drawer which we are dealing with. So this is the navigation drawer and these are the contents of the navigation drawer. So whenever the user tries to select one of these options, what we want to do is that we want to make the user navigate to a new activity. And now if we switch to this app bar, as you could see, this is just the basic bar which is toolbar, and whenever we need to style the toolbar, we are going to use this layout. And if we switch to the navigation header, as you could see, this is the navigation header right here. Now as in this case, we are going to create a pizza application. What we are going to do is that we are going to make a few changes to this thing right here, and we are going to make it look attractive. So the first thing which you could do is that you could just simply select this thing right here, which is nothing but the background. And as you could see, for the background we have a image right here. So what you could do is that instead of this image we could choose a color, and if we don't know which color to choose, what you could do is that you could simply open up Google, and here we are going to type in Android material design color generator. And basically this is the link which we are going to open up. So it basically allows us to choose from multiple colors, and it is basically going to generate a code for us. So once we are in there, we select this material design color, and actually you could use any website. The thing is that this website may become irrelevant after a few days, so make sure that you select appropriate website, and you could select any website which you want, but for the sake of simplicity, as I found this website useful to select the colors, I've chosen this website. So once you're in there, you could select any color which you wish to. So let's say we want our application to look like this, so we simply select this color, and when you click on this color, the color is automatically going to get copied onto your clipboard. So if we exit out of it, and if we switch back to Android Studio, go to background and select this option, and instead of this color, we are going to replace it with the color which is copied. So as you could see, this is the color which we want. So when we click OK, as you could see, the color has now changed. And if you wish to change your color, what you could do is that you could simply switch back to this, copy any color, return back to Android Studio, and paste the desired color right over here. So what you could do is that you could simply select this option again, go here and replace this thing with the color which you want. Then click OK, and as you could notice, the color has changed. Now the next thing which we want to change here is this Android logo right here, and that is because this is a pizza application and we don't want the Android bot over here. So what you could do is that you could simply replace this with a new one. So what I would recommend is that you completely delete this, and once it is deleted, what you could do is that you could select an image view, drag it and drop it right over here, and go to the layout width and select the layout width to be, let's say, 50 dps, and the height 50 dps as well. So as you could see, now we have our image view, and you could also change it to, let's say, 75 dps, because I think 75 would be more appropriate for this. So we change this to 75 as well, so 75 dps, and now it looks much more better. And now the next thing which we do is that we add an image here. So what I have done is that I've copied this image for pizza. So we'll simply copy this, return back to Android Studio, and we are going to paste it in the drawable folder. So make sure that you paste your image here. The next thing which we do is that we select this drawable folder which is called as V21, then click OK, and make sure that your image is a PNG image. And as you could see, we have our image right here. Now we need to set this image view to this image. So we select the image, go to properties, go to background, and go to project, go to the drawable folder, and in there we are searching for the image named pizza, and here is our image. So we simply select it. So this is basically what it looks like. Then simply click OK. And as you could see, we have the image of pizza right over here. Now the next thing which we do is that we need to change this name. So let's say we name it as, let's say I'll give it my name, you give yours. So I type Ashutosh Pizza. I spelled it wrong. So yeah, this looks fine now. So once it is done, we also need to change this. So let's say you put your email ID here, or let's say we put a tagline here. So let's say we type in best pizzas in town. So as you could see, now we have this thing right here designed. So what happens is that when we switch to the activity main.xml, as you could see, this is what our application looks like right now. So basically now it looks more attractive as compared to before. So basically we have the image here, we have our name here, and now the next thing which we need to do is that we need to design this thing right here, which is nothing but the actual design of the navigation drawer. And also we need to make it functional so that whenever the user selects some option from here, he should be navigated to a new activity. So that's it for this tutorial, and in this tutorial we learned how to design this top section of the navigation drawer, and also you could make relevant changes as you want. So if you want to basically change the color to your choice, so you could do so. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood what is a navigation drawer and what are some of the elements inside the navigation drawer. And in the next tutorial we'll be discussing more elements about the navigation drawer, and basically we are going to design this part right here. So basically we are going to change these things, as well as we are going to remove these icons right here. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn how we could redesign this thing right here, which is the bottom section of the navigation drawer. Now in the previous tutorial we have designed the top section of the navigation drawer, and in this tutorial we are going to learn about the bottom section. So the first thing which we are going to do is that we are going to remove these icons right here, and that is because in the pizza application you don't need an icon of this camera or this gallery or this slideshow right here. So basically we are going to remove these things, and we are going to also make changes to the text which is present right over here. So in the pizza application we have options like order pizza, menu, and all that kinds of things. So basically we are going to make the same modifications. So the first thing which we need to do in order to remove these images is that we need to go to this menu folder, and inside the menu folder we have a file which is called as activity main drawer. So if we switch to this, as you could see, there is an option which is called as Android icon, and which basically assigns this image to the particular item. So what you need to do is that you need to go inside this item, and you could delete this thing in order to remove the icon. Now one more thing which I would like to mention here is that if you wish to add your own icons to this, you could simply copy paste the image which you want to use inside the drawable folder, give it an ID, and use that ID in here. So that basically is going to change the icon to the one which you want. But for the sake of this tutorial we are going to design the navigation drawer in a plain and simple fashion. So we are going to remove these icons. Make sure that you delete these icons, and once they are deleted you could just simply save the code. And when we switch back to this thing right here, as you could see, now the icons have been removed and we only have the text which is present on the navigation drawer. Now the next thing which we wish to do is that we also need to change these items right here. So we don't want this import gallery or slideshow, anything like that. So again we switch to this file which is called as the activity main drawer, and we make some changes here. So in here, instead of import, what we are going to change this to is, let's say, order, and also we are going to change the ID to, let's say, order, and we are going to make this as, let's say, order pizza. And for the next thing, let's name it as view menu. So we type view menu. So that basically allows us to view the menu of items, and let's name this as view menu. Then for the third item, let's say we name it as today's offers, and we change the title to today's offers. And final item, let's say we switch or we change this to, let's say extras. So we type in extras here and we change the title to extras as well, and make sure that you remember these IDs and give them a relevant name, and that is because we are going to use these IDs later on. So once we are done with this, when we switch to this activity main, as you could see, now the options have been changed here. And also what you could do is that you could also make changes to these things. So let's say we want to mention our contact number here, so we switch here and we are going to change this to, let's say, contact us, and let's change this to contact us. And also let's change the final item to, let's say, rate app, and also let's change the title to rate us. So when the changes are done and when we switch to the activity main, as you could see, the options have been changed. Also let's make sure that we change this to capital U. So as you could see, now our navigation drawer is pretty much ready. Now the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to take a test drive of this application. We are going to run it on the emulator and let's see how it looks like. So we simply save the code and we run our application on the emulator. And when we tried to run our application on the emulator, our application crashed, and that is because we got some errors. So basically what we have left out is that we actually need to go in this thing right here and we are going to copy the ID of each and every item, and we switch back to the main activity.java and we actually need to replace these IDs with these. And this error actually occurred, that is because we have made changes to the IDs here and we have not changed them inside the main activity. And also we are going to understand the significance of these things in the next tutorial. So for now, just simply copy these IDs and just simply paste it over here in the main activity, and make sure that you don't leave any of the items ID to be copied into this main activity, or else you are going to get an error. So once we are done with this, we are good to go. So let's save the code and let's try to run it on the emulator. So as you could see, our application is up and running on the emulator, and this is the basic window which we are going to get at the beginning. And this thing right here is what is going to open up your navigation drawer. So if we simply click it, as you could see, this is what our navigation drawer looks like. So when we select any of the options, what happens is that nothing opens up. We simply get this activity right here, and that is because we have not yet written the code for what actually happens when we select one of the options. So basically you could also pull this thing out and you could push it back in. So this is basically what a navigation drawer actually looks like. And in the next tutorial, we are going to learn how to make these things functional, so that whenever we select some of this option right here, it is basically going to open up a new activity instead of this activity right here. So that's it for this tutorial, and that basically covers how to design the bottommost part of our navigation drawer. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to design the next part of our application. So you might have noticed that when we opened up the navigation drawer, so this is what it basically looks like, but the problem with this was that if we have a look at this toolbar right here, it appeared blue and the color of this thing right here was kind of pink. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to change the color of this thing to pink. So basically we want the color which is present over here. So in order to get the color, we switch to this nav header main.xml, and we are basically going to copy this color value so that we could assign the same color to the toolbar. So we simply copy this color, then we switch back to this XML file which is called as the app bar main. We are going to select this thing right here, which is nothing but the bar. Then we are going to go to background, and instead of this color right here, we are going to change it to this thing. We are going to change it to this color. Then simply click OK, and as you could see, now the color has been changed. Now the next thing which we want to do is that we also need to remove this hello world which is present right over here. So in order to change the content of this thing right here, we switch to the content mail.xml, we select this hello world, we delete it, and in here we are going to put in the contents which we want to be present on the main activity. So what we do here is that we create a simple welcome screen here. So let's go ahead and put an image view right here, and actually you could put in anything which you want, but for the sake of example I'm taking a image view, and let's change the width of this to, let's say, 100 dp and height to 100 dps as well. So as you could see, this is our image view. And now let's go ahead and add the same image which we have added over here. So we simply select it, go to properties, select a property called background, then go to project, and in the drawable folder we select the image of the pizza. So when we select it, as you could see, now we have this thing right here. And now let's go ahead and add some text to it so as to welcome our users. So we drag a text, drop it over here, and let's say we want to change the text. So we again go to properties, go to text, and change the text to, let's say, welcome to Ashutosh Pizza. And now as you could see, the text appeared right over here. So you could customize this thing as you want. So if you want to check how your application looks like, you could go to the activity main.xml, and this thing is a preview of what your app is going to look like. So basically, as you could see in the background, this thing right here is nothing but this content mail.xml which is present over here. So make sure to customize everything according to your needs. And let's say if you want to change the background to something more attractive, so let's go to background and let's select the color to be black. So we change this thing to 0000 and 00. So as you could see, this is what the background looks like. And also if you want to change the color of this text, we simply select it, go to properties, or you could also change the text from here. So if we switch back to the text view or the XML view, and if we switch on the preview, as you could see, this thing right here is nothing but the text view. And if you wish to change the color of this text view, we simply type in Android text color, and let's say you want to make it look white, so we type #FF. So as you could see, now the text color changed to white. Now if we switch to the activity main.xml, this is basically what your app is going to look like. So now let's move ahead and let's learn how we could make these buttons functional, these things functional. So these are basically nothing but the list items which are present onto your navigation drawer. Now if we switch back to the main activity, as you could see, there are a lot of things which are present over here, and actually all the things are important, but the most important thing here is if you scroll down, you will have something which is called as the on navigation item selected. And what this method does is that it basically handles the navigation in your entire application. So what it does is that it looks for which button is actually clicked. So it basically checks for which item is being selected. So for example, if we select this item, which is nothing but view menu, so the ID of this view menu is nothing but view_menu. So whenever we click this option right here, the code which is written inside this thing gets executed. So once you understand the significance of this, the navigation actually becomes a lot simpler. And also I think I have named it wrong, so this should be order, and if we switch there, this thing is named as an order. So I'll make relevant changes here. And if we switch to the main activity, actually this thing is not going to work because we need to have same IDs at both the places. So I make changes here and I save the code. So our main intention while creating this application is that whenever the user selects this option or any of the options, we basically want to launch a new activity which allows user to perform new actions. So what we are going to do in the next tutorial is that we are going to add in some new activities right over here, and basically we are going to call these new activities, or we are going to start those new activities right over here by using the intent. So basically we create new activities, we use their name, we create an intent for that particular activity, and then call in these activities right here, so that whenever the user selects an option, he will be redirected to a new activity and a new activity is going to start. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood the things explained in this tutorial. So make sure you understand this method right here, which is nothing but the on navigation item selected. So it basically allows you to switch to a new activity. So that's it for this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are basically going to learn how to create a new activity and how to navigate to that particular activity using the navigation drawer. So let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial. So the first thing which we need to do is that we need to create a new activity, and I hope you guys know already how to create a new activity as we have discussed it in the previous tutorials, but still I will explain how to create a new activity. So the first thing which we need to do is that we need to go inside the Java folder, go to this thing right here, which is nothing but the folder which contains our main activity, and then we right click on it, go to new, and we are going to select an activity, and you could choose any activity, but in this case we are going to go with a blank activity. And now let's go ahead and let's name this activity as something, and let's say we name it as menu items, as this activity is going to define, or it is going to display the items which are present on the menu. So let's go ahead and create it. So we type menu items, then click finish, and your new activity should be created soon. So as you could see, we got the layout for our activity, which is nothing but menu items. And if you have a look at here, this is the class or the Java class for the menu items, and this thing right here is nothing but the menu items. So we first go into the Java class and we are going to delete this unnecessary stuff. So make sure that you get rid of it, and once it is done, we are good to go. So now if we switch back to the menu items, as you could see, there is nothing here, nothing present here. So the next thing which we need to do is that we need to design this thing. So let's say you want to design a menu in such a fashion that we have the image of pizza here, then we have the content description here, and then we have a button right here which says buy this or order now. So we are going to do the same, and the much efficient way of doing this is by using a fragment. So basically you create a single template for each menu item, and we are going to use the same template for each and every pizza item or menu item which we are going to add in there. But the thing is that as this tutorial is not about fragments, we are going to design simple and single item on this menu. So let's go ahead and drag an image view and place it right over here, and let's give it some properties like the height and width. So let's say the height and width is 50 dps, and this is basically used in order to display the picture of the menu item which we are using, and it is actually better if we make it like 75 dps. I think it would be more appropriate. And now let's go ahead and add some image to it. So go to background and go to project, and this thing is basically not related to the navigation drawer, but as we are designing the pizza application, we need to have something on this activity. So we are basically going to design a single menu item right over here. So after this, let's say we want to display the name of the product or the name of the item and the description or a short description. So we also drag a large text, place it over here, and let's say we change the text to, let's say, veg pizza. Now as you could see, the name has changed. Now let's go ahead and add a short description right over here. So we go here and we select a small text here, and we place it right over here, and let's change the description of this text to, let's say, contains onion, tomato, cheese. So as you could see, now we have the description here. So as you could see, the description has been added, and it is better if we have a little bit of margin here. So in order to actually add a proper margin, you cannot simply just drag it and drop it. What you need to do is that you need to go to the text view, and as you could see, you could have a preview here, and what you could do is that you could select this, and it is going to point out to the tag which actually has the contents of this. And what you could do is that you could go in here and add a property called the margin. So we type Android layout margin top, and you could have a margin like, let's say, 5 dps or let's say 15 dps. So as you could see, if you add a margin of 15 dps, the description will appear a little bit to the downside. And now the next thing which we do is that we add a button, which is a small button right over here, which says like order this now. And what you could do is that you could also shorten the description here so as to make room for your button. So let's go ahead and name this button as order now. So we simply select it and we type order now. So as you could see, we have our button here, And if you want to actually make it look good, you could create your own graphical image of the button, and you could simply use that image as your button image. So basically, when we are done with this, we are done with the activity which is going to display the menu. And actually you could add in a lot more items here. So what you could do is that you could go on adding your items. So you could update the image, you could update the name, description, and the buttons according to your choice. So now once we are done with this, what we need to do is that we actually need to start this activity, which is nothing but this menu items activity, whenever we select this option which is called as view menu. So that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial we'll be finally completing the design of our pizza navigation application. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this final tutorial on the navigation drawer application. So in this tutorial what we are going to do is that we are going to try to attempt to start this activity, which is nothing but the menu items.java activity, which has the layout which is nothing but this, and we are going to start this thing inside the main activity. And we are basically going to start this whenever the user selects the option which is called as the view menu. So what we need to simply do here is that we need to go ahead and create an intent here, which is basically going to start a new activity. So we type intent, let's name it as intent, then we type this equals new intent, and to this intent we are going to pass in two things. The first thing is going to be this object of the main activity. So we type main activity dot this, give a comma, and then we need to specify the name of the class which we want to start, or the name of the activity which we want to start on initiating this intent. So we basically want to start the menu items.java. So we type menu items.class. So once we are done with this, we have basically initialized the intent. Now the only thing which remains is that we need to start the activity. So we type start activity, and in here we basically pass in the intent which we want to start. So that is basically nothing but the intent. So once we pass it in there, we are good to go. Now we could simply save the code, and we are going to run this application on the emulator. So as you could see, the application is now up and running on the emulator, and I don't know if it looks good or not. So basically whenever we select this button, our navigation drawer pops up. So when we click this button right here, nothing happens, no new activity is launched. That is because we have not yet added the code for this, but we have added the code for our menu. So if we select this option right here, as you could see, the menu just popped up, and if we click this back button, we will again be prompted to the initial screen. So that's basically how you create a navigation drawer in Android. So basically you could create this application right here, which is the pizza application, and you could basically sell it to any pizza shop if they are interested. One thing I would like to mention is that the main intention of this tutorial was to teach you guys how to use and how to create a navigation drawer and how to actually use it for navigation. So what you could do is that you could create as many activities as you want, and you could then connect those activities to this navigation drawer, and you could make your application look much more better. So I've made this ugly looking layout, and you could do it in a much more better way. You could use buttons here, you could use a login form, you could actually create a menu which we have created right over here, which is nothing but this menu, and you could actually design it in a much more better fashion. You could just simply use more stylish buttons. You could also let's say use fragments in order to design this menu, and you could also use a list view right here so as to list out the items, and whenever the user selects an item, he is redirected to a new activity which basically allows user to make a purchase. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to create navigation drawer in your Android application. So the main purpose of a navigation drawer is to enable user to navigate smoothly in your application. So the only thing which we need to remember here is that we could change the layout of the navigation drawer, and we could assign a new activity to each of the options which are present here. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn how to develop or how to use Google Maps in your Android application. So let's say you are developing an Android application in which you need to use maps to display some locations. So for example, let's say you are developing a taxi app. So in that case, you'll need to make use of the Google Maps in your Android application. So it is important to know how actually Google Maps can be used in our Android application. So the first thing which we need to do is that we need to start a new Android Studio project. And before even starting the new Android Studio project, we actually need to download the Google Play services. So in order to download Google Play services, what we need to do is that we need to go to the SDK manager, and we actually need to install the package for the Google Play services. And I'm going to show you how to exactly download the Google Play services after setting up the project. But actually you need to set up, or actually you need to download the Google Play services and install it even before you start a new Android Studio project. So let's go ahead and start a new Android Studio project, and let's name this as my map application. Then click next, select API level 15, click next. And here, instead of going with a blank activity, as we are using Google Maps, we will select a Google Map activity. So in that case, the main activity of our application is going to be the Google Map activity. Then click next. Then finally click finish. So once everything is set up, your code is going to look like this. And the thing is that it is actually going to provide us with a unique key which we actually need to use in order to generate a key. So even before creating an Android application which actually utilizes maps, what we need to do is that we need to actually obtain permission from Google so as to use their API, which is nothing but application programmable interface for the Google Maps. And one more thing you need to remember is that if you get an error, so the main reason for that would be you have not yet downloaded the Google Play services. So in order to check if you have downloaded the Google Play services, you simply need to go to this SDK manager. So simply click this icon. And once you have clicked it, you will have an option which says launch standalone SDK manager. So we simply select this option. And as you could see, it is going to display us multiple packages which we have downloaded. So in that package, we actually need to go into the extras folder. So this is our extras folder right here. And in this, we actually need to find a package which is called as the Google Play services. Now in my case, as you could see, the package has been successfully installed. Now, if the package is not installed in your case, what you could do is that you could simply check this option and you could install it. And once it is installed, what you could do is that you could restart the Android Studio. And once the Android Studio is restarted, what you could do is that you could create a new activity, which is nothing but the Google Maps activity, as we have done here. So now once everything is set up, the next thing which we actually need to do is that we actually need to get a key and we actually need to paste it over here. Now the significance for getting the key is that we actually need to obtain a permission from Google that we are using their maps. So in order to get a permission, what we need to do is that we need to go to Google. So we open up a web browser and search for Google Developer Console. And as you could see, the first link which pops up is going to be the link for the Google Developers Console. So you simply select it and you need to log in with your Google account. And as you could see, this is the interface for the Google Developers Console. Now you could see an option here, and actually it is going to show us the name of the current project. So I already have a project here, and in your case it might be a bit different, but as you could see, there is a down arrow right here. So simply select it and you will have an option for creating a new project. So simply select the option to create a new project, and let's name this as, and you could name it anything. So in this case, I'm going to name it, let's say, my new map project. Then click on create. And as you could see, the new project has been created and the name of our project is going to appear right over here. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to create an API key. So in order to create a key, what we do is that we select this option which says enable and manage APIs. So on selecting this option, what we need to do is that we need to select this option right here which says Google Maps Android API. And that is because we are using the API, the Google Maps API for Android. So simply select this. And in there, we are going to select an option which says credentials. And after this, we select this option which says create credentials. And in this, we go with the API key. So as we want to generate an API key, we select this option. And as you could see, there are multiple options available here. So if you actually want to access the Google Maps API for a server, we could go with this option. If you want it for a browser, we select this option. For iOS, we select this option, and for Android, we go with this. So we simply select this as we are developing Android application. So once it is selected, what we need to do is that we need to name this key as something. And once you have named it, what you could do is that you could select this option which says add package name and fingerprint. So on selecting it, it is actually going to ask you two things. So the first thing is going to be the package name, which is nothing but the name of your package. So if we switch to the main activity, as you could see, this is the package name right here. So we simply select the package name, copy it, go back here and simply paste it. So once we have copied and pasted the package name, the next thing which we need to do is that we also need to copy and paste the SHA-1 certificate fingerprint. And in order to obtain this certificate fingerprint, what you need to do is that we simply need to go to the Google Maps API.xml file. So this thing right here which I've blurred is nothing but it is the fingerprint which we are going to use. And for security reasons, I actually need to blur it. And that is because it is not actually safe to distribute your fingerprint with others. And the main reason being others could actually misuse our key. So we simply copy this, return back here and simply paste it over here. And then finally, once it is done, we click on this option which says create. And it is actually going to create an API key for us. And as you could see, it has popped up the API key. So we simply copy this API key, return back to Android Studio. And the next thing which we need to do is that we simply need to replace this thing right here with the key which we got. So I will simply delete it and I'll paste my key right over here. So once the key is pasted, we are good to go. So the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to check if this application runs, and that is because we need to check if the API key has been enabled. So once it is done, the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to enable this key. So in order to enable it, we again go back to the Google Developers Console. Then we go to Overview. Again select this Google Maps Android API. And here we will have an option which says Enable. So we simply select this option. And on selecting this option, our key will actually be enabled. So we have successfully generated the key, but the thing is that we could enable and disable the key at any moment. So once it is enabled, you will have an option of disabling it. So that means our key has been successfully enabled. So once your key is enabled, the next thing which we do is that we run our application and check if our application works. And it is always better to run your application on the emulator so as to check if it performs correctly. And if your application does not perform correctly, that means you have missed something and you have done something wrong. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to actually create the API key which is required for using Google Map APIs in our Android application. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn which permissions we need to add to our application or our GPS application so as to make it perform correctly. So in the previous tutorial we have created this simple GPS application and we have learned how to actually create an API key so that the API key can be used in order to access the Google Map API. Now after creating an API key and adding it and enabling it, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to add in some permissions to our application. So in order to add permissions, what we do is that we switch to this Android manifest.xml And this is the manifest for our application, and here we are going to add in a few permissions. So the first permission which we are going to need is going to be the internet, as we need an access to internet in order to display the map. So we go right here and we type use this permission android dot permission dot internet. So this is the permission for internet. Then we close the tag, and after it we are going to access a new permission which is called as the access network state. So this is a permission which basically gives us an access to the network state so that we could actually display the map. So we type use this permission android name android dot permission dot access network state. So after this, the next permission which we are going to need is going to be the access find location, but the access find location permission is already added by default. Now one more permission which we need is going to be the access course location. So we type android dot permission dot access course location. So once we are done with this, we are good to go. So now we just need to save the code, and we actually need to run our application. Now it is always better if you run your application on the actual device, but I'll try to run my application on the emulator and check if it works. So as you could see, our application is up and running on the emulator, and this is what we get right now. So currently the marker on the map is pointing towards Sydney, and that is because we actually have it written by default inside our code. So if we switch to the main activity .java, as you could see, this thing right here, which is nothing but the method which says on map ready, it basically points towards these coordinates which are -34 and 151. So if you want to actually set it to your own coordinates, so what you could do is that you could search for your city or your location on Google, and you could simply copy the coordinates and you could paste your coordinates right over here. Now this thing right here is nothing but the marker. So this method is basically an add marker method which allows us to add a marker, and this option right here basically is used in order to specify the title of the marker. In our case the marker was pointing towards Sydney, so the text was specified as marker in Sydney. Now the most important thing about this is that if you are getting an error, you might have messed up somewhere. So you actually need to check a few things. The first thing which you need to check is that if you have added the key over here after the string name, and if you have added the key, the next thing which might have gone wrong is that you might have not included these permissions right over here. And one more thing which could go wrong in this case is that whenever we have created the API key, we might have actually created it, but it might not have been enabled. So we also need to check if the API key which we have created is enabled currently, and also if you are creating a new key and if you are enabling it, then we must give it a little bit of time so that the key could actually get enabled. So after it is done, the next thing which we check is that we check if we have added these permissions right here, and if you are missing any permission from this, then chances are your application might not run on the emulator. And also, if you are having difficulties running this application on the emulator, you could also run this application on your actual device so that it performs in a correct manner. So that's it for this tutorial, and in the next tutorial we'll be learning a few more basic things about creating a Google Maps application in Android. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn how we could actually set this marker right here to our current position in our application. So for this, what you need to do is that first we need to select our location on the map. So make sure whichever country you live in or whichever place you live in, you just open up Google Maps in your browser, and the next thing which we do is that we scroll to our location. So as I live in this location, what I do is that I simply right click on it, and there is an option which says what's here. So we simply need to select this option, and when we select this option, as you could see, it is actually going to display these coordinates right here. So what we need to do is that we simply need to right click it, and we actually need to select these coordinates, and we actually need to paste it in our application. So select inspect element, and as we want to copy this latitude and longitude position, we simply right click on it and select copy internal HTML. So once this thing is copied, the next thing which we do is that we return back to Android Studio and we paste the coordinates right over here. So once the coordinates are pasted, what we do is that we update the marker which we have right here. So inside the marker, what we do is that we write any text which we want to display. So let's say we want to display like I live here. So I type Ashutosh lives here. So once it is done, we are good to go. And also one more thing which I would like to mention is that as I have updated my location to my country, I have removed the Sydney, but you could also have used that because it's just an object name. But for the sake of understanding, I have replaced this object name by India and I've removed Sydney. And also make sure that you make relevant changes according to your country over here and over here. So once it is done, we are good to go. Now the thing is that when you run this application on your device, what happens is that your position would be displayed on the map, but it won't be like zoomed in at the current position. So what we need to do is that we actually need to zoom in the map automatically when it loads up. So in order to do that, what we do is that we use this map object right here. So we type mmap dot animate camera, and we are using the animate camera method as we need to animate the camera and make it point to the current location. And inside it we type camera update factory dot new latitude longitude zoom. So this is a method which we are looking for. So this method basically zooms in towards the current latitude and longitude. So the first parameter which we are going to specify is going to be the location. So we type in the created location, give a comma, and then we need to type in the amount by which we need to zoom in. So I'm going to type 12.0 and finally type an F for float. So once it is done, we are good to go. So once we run this application on the emulator, we are going to get our current location with the map zoomed in to our current position. So we simply save the code and we run our application on the emulator. So as you could see, our application is up and running on the emulator, and as you could notice, the marker is now pointing towards the location which we have specified, and also it is actually a zoomed in view of the map, and that is because we have added a special line of code so that whenever the map actually loads, the map is actually zoomed in to the marker position so that the marker is at the central location. So now if we click on the marker, as you could see, it says that Ashutosh lives here. So you could make a cool looking application wherein you could actually select the coordinates of your friend's house, and you could use the latitude and longitude position of it so as to display the various locations of your friends on your application. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to actually enter location of latitude and longitude in your application and display it on the Google Map. So there are a lot of things which you could experiment with by using the latitude and longitude position. You could calculate distance between 2 points, you could display multiple points, and let's say if you have an application wherein you need to actually retrieve some data from database, so what you could do is that you could actually store in an additional field which is called as the latitude and longitude position, and when the data gets retrieved from the database, you could actually display the position in your Android application. So there are multiple number of applications of using the Google APIs for Android applications. So if you are developing a taxi application, you could use this, and if you're developing any location based application, you could easily use this API so as to make your application much more attractive and much more beneficial. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to talk something about the action bar. So action bar is nothing but this thing right here which appears at the top, and if you have a look at this right now, as you could see, it is a simple and plain action bar and it is not showing any button over here. But if we run this application,
you could notice that there is a button right here. So whenever we click that button, it is going to pop up a small item here which says settings. So in this tutorial we are going to learn how to customize this action bar according to our needs. So the first thing which I would like to mention here is that if you want to change the color of the action bar, so what you could do is that you could simply switch to the activity main.xml, and in there you could edit the color of the action bar. So you simply have to select this action bar right here, go to properties, go to a property called background, and change the color to any desired color which you want to. Then simply click OK, and the color of the action bar should be changed. Now the next thing which we are going to learn is that you could actually customize this action bar, and you could add in a few buttons so that whenever you click a button, some action happens or some action occurs. So in order to customize it, the first thing which we need to do is that we need to add a compile dependency to our application. So in order to add a compile dependency, we go to File, then we go to Project Structure, and in Project Structure we select an option under Modules which is called as App. And as you could see, there are multiple tabs over here. So we are going to select the Dependencies tab, and this tab is actually going to contain all the dependencies which we have. And the dependency which we should have added here is going to be this dependency right here, which says com.android.support appcompat v7:23.1.1. So if you don't have a dependency over here, so what you could do is that you could simply add in a dependency. So in order to add a dependency, we simply click this button right here, and in there we are going to add a library dependency. So we simply select this, and if you don't have a dependency here, you simply type in the name of this dependency, and when you hit OK, this dependency should pop up. So you simply have to select it and hit OK, and the dependency should be added up for you. So basically these M symbols stands for library dependencies. So if we have a look here, as you could see, we could identify dependencies depending upon their symbols. So once it is done, we are good to go. So once you have added the dependency, we simply click OK. And now the next thing which we wish to do is that we need to add a small button over here which performs some action. So in order to add a button here, what we do is that we switch to this menu folder which is right over here, right below the layout folder, and then we select this file which is called as menu main.xml. So we simply select it, and as you could see, this is our file right here, and inside it, as you could see, we have one item which is nothing but the button for settings. Now the next thing which we do is that we go ahead and add one more item to it. So basically, in order to add up any button or anything to the action bar, what we need to do is that we need to add it as an item. So let's go ahead and add an item to it. So we go right here, then we type the item tag. So we type item, and let's go ahead and give it an ID. So we type ID, Android ID equals @+ID, and let's name it as order _action. So once we have the ID, the next thing which we do is that we give it a title. So again we go back, so we go here, then we type in Android title equals, and here we are going to add in a string. So we type add string slash, and let's name this string as order action as well. And now the next thing which we do is that we also need to mention the particular order in which this should appear. So we type order in category. So we type Android order in category, and as we want to display it as the first item, we specify the number 1 here. And now the final thing which we need to do is that we need to actually mention when this item should be displayed. So we go here and then we type app : show as action, and what this thing does is that it is going to have some conditions like This item is going to be showed if there is a room for this item to be displayed on the action bar. So inside it we type if room. So once it is done, we are good to go. Now the only thing which remains is that we actually need to assign the value to this string right here. So in order to actually assign a value to this string, we again go to the values folder, we go to the strings.xml file, and we create a new string which is called as order action. So we simply copy this text right here, go back to strings, add a new string. So we type string name equals order action, and let's name it as order action. So now as you could notice, the error has gone. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to close this tag. So once we are done with this, we are good to go. So basically what we did is that we actually wanted to design this action bar right here. So we have basically changed the color of this. So in order to change the color, we go to the activity main.xml, we select this action bar right here, go to properties, go to background, change the color. Now in order to add an item, we actually cannot add an item to this over here. So this thing right here is nothing but the menu. So this is located under the menu folder. So if we go to the menu folder, we have a file which is called as menu_main. So we select this file and we are going to add a button over there in the form of an item. So in order to add an item, we use the item tag. Then we have specified the ID of this item, and that is because we are going to need it soon. Now after adding an ID to it, we have assigned the title to it. Then we have assigned the order in which this item should appear. So for example, if there are multiple items over here, so this item should be appeared as the first item. And then finally, we have mentioned show as action. That means this is going to be showed as an action if there is a room on the action bar. So that's basically it for this tutorial. And in the next tutorial, what we are going to do is that we are going to assign a nice little image to the button which we have created, and we are also going to learn how to handle the click events associated with any item on the action bar. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to talk how we could add styling to the button which we have on the action bar. So in the previous tutorial we have created this action bar, we have assigned a color value to it, and we have also added in an item over here inside the menu folder. So if we go to the menu folder and if we go to the menu_main.xml file, this thing right here is nothing but the item which we have added. Now you could add as many items as you want according to the need of your application, but for the sake of simplicity, we have added a single item over here, and also make sure that you have different numbers over here. So this is basically the number which specifies in which order the item appears on the action bar. Now if we switch back to this activity screen right here, as you could see, nothing appears on the action bar, but if we save the code and if we run this on the emulator, you will see a small let's say button over here. But the thing is that we have not yet added an image to this button. So in this tutorial we are going to do the same. So in order to assign an image to this button right here, you could design an image in Photoshop, but the thing is that a more efficient way of doing this would be you simply go to this website which is called as developer.android.com/design/downloads/index.html, and these are nothing but the resources provided by Android for us to design our applications. So as you could see, there are the color palettes for the material design, there are layout templates, there are stickers, sheets, icons, there are Android Wear materials, and there are also the basic fonts which we need in our application. But for the sake of this tutorial, we are going to go with this which is called as the material icon collection. So if we select it, as you could see, we are presented with the icons, and these are the basic icons which we have here. So there is an icon available for each and every action which is imaginable. So we have the icons for accessibility, account balance, account box, account circle, book, and everything like that. So you could choose an appropriate icon from here, and actually it is available for free download, so you don't have to pay anything. So what we are going to do is that we are going to select one icon from here. So let's go ahead. And select this icon right here. So we simply select it and we are going to save it in the PNG format. So we simply select it and we are going to save the file. And when we actually extract this into a folder, this is a folder which we are going to get. So when we simply open it up, as you could see, we have three options here: Android, iOS and web. So basically we can also use these icons for developing iPhone applications, and also they have provided the icons for using on our website. So now the next thing which we do is that we switch to Android, and as you could see, there are multiple folders like HDPI, MDPI, XHDPI, XXX HDPI and XXX HDPI. Now what these things stands for is that it is basically the pixel density. So the icons are sorted according to pixel density. So if you open this up, as you could see, this icon is a bit smaller, and if we open this up, as you could see, this icon is a bit bigger. So the reason why we have these multiple folders is that whenever we upload our Android application to the Google Play Store, what happens is that each device has a different screen size and a screen resolution. So what happens is that if we have a single icon, and this icon might actually be too small for a phone with a larger screen, so instead of using this icon, our application automatically uses this icon right here, which is suitable for big screens. So that's the main significance of using these icons. And what we need to actually do is that we need to copy each and every icon, or we could also copy the entire folder, switch back to Android Studio, and as you could see, there is a folder which is called as the minmap folder. So we could simply go to the minmap folder and we could paste the folder right over here. And what this thing does is that it is going to take the suitable icon and it is going to apply it over here. But for the sake of this tutorial, what we are going to do is that we are going to take the simple icon and we are going to rename it to something like a simple icon. So we type icon and we are going to simply copy this, and we are going to go back to Android Studio and we are going to paste it in the drawable folder. So let's name it as icon.png, click OK. And if we click over here, as you could see, the icon has been added. So once this thing is done, we are good to go. So now the next thing which we need to do is that we simply need to go over the menu, main.xml file, which is nothing but here. And for this item, we need to add in an image. So in order to add an image over here, we go right in between, we go right here, and then we type Android icon, and then we specify the path where the icon is located. So it is present in the drawable folder. So we type add drawable / and the name of the icon is icon. So we simply type in icon, and as you could see, the icon appeared right over here. So if we switch back to the content main.xml, as you could see, there is still no change on the screen, and that is because the change wouldn't be visible unless and until we run our application on the emulator. So we go ahead and save the code, and we are going to run this application on the emulator so as to check if it performs correctly. So when I tried to run our application on the emulator, nothing happened, and it was actually displaying this thing as empty, but now it is displaying OK. And I will tell you what changes I have made to this application. So basically this is our action bar right here, and if we click it and if we click this button right here, as you could see, nothing happens, and that is because we have not yet added the code for the action event occurred with this button right here. But if we click this button right here, as you could see, the pop-up of setting appears right over here. So in the next tutorial, we'll discuss what happened and where we have actually gone wrong while creating this action bar, and we'll also handle the event which is associated with this button. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to actually add in a proper icon to this action bar right here so that the user could be redirected to a new activity on clicking this icon. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to finally make the action bar perform some action. So in the previous tutorial, as I said, we faced some difficulty when we tried to run our application on the emulator. The action bar actually appeared to be blank. So I figured out what the problem was. So basically what I did was that I was using the same project from the previous tutorial, which was the My Toast application. So this was the project which we have created, and I was using this as a sample. So in that project what I did was that as I removed the unnecessary code, so I have actually removed the toolbar from here, and I've also removed the create options menu, which was basically used to inflate the action bar. And also I've removed these options right here. But as long as you are using, or as long as you are creating a new project, you should not face any problem. So basically the only thing which you need to take care of is that you don't delete any code from this main activity.java. So as long as you didn't delete any code from the main activity.java, you will be fine and your action bar will be performing correctly. So that was the mistake which I did. So I went back to the project, I've added the toolbar, I've added the code which I had deleted, and once the code was added, the action bar was performing correctly. So make sure that you have this code right here. So this is basically nothing but on create. So this line here was deleted by me, which was nothing but creation of the toolbar and set support action bar method. And after it we had the on create options menu, and also on selecting the option, what happens, so this thing is mentioned in this method right here, and this is nothing but this is the code from the previous project. So even if I delete it, it does not matter. So once everything is set up, our action bar should perform correctly. Now the only thing which remains is that when we try to run our application and when we clicked the button on the action bar, as you noticed, nothing happened. And now in this tutorial we are going to learn how to exactly make it functional. So now let's go ahead and let's add one more activity to our project, so that whenever the user clicks this button right here, he will be redirected to a new activity. So in order to create a new activity, go to app, go to Java, go to this folder right here, which is the first folder, right click on it and select a new activity. And we are going to go with a blank activity. Let's name this as order activity, or let's simply name it as order, then click finish. And as you could see, now we have a new activity created, which is nothing but the order activity. So this is the XML file for it. So this is what the activity looks like, and this thing right here is nothing but the Java class for our activity. Now in order to distinguish this activity, we are going to go in the XML and we are going to add in a few things over here. So let's drag and drop a plain text here. So let's go ahead and drag a large text over here, and let's go to properties, let's go to text, and let's change this thing to, let's say, this is the order activity. And this thing basically here is going to be the activity which we want to start on clicking that icon button on the action bar on our main activity. So now once we have set up this activity, now the only thing which remains is that we actually need to switch to this activity when we click that little button over there. So you could add as many things as you want to this activity, but for the sake of simplicity, I've added just a plain text or a large text over here. So now once it is done, what we do is that we switch to the main activity which is present over here. And if we have a look at here, which is called as the on options item selected method, so what this method basically does is that it is going to check which item is being selected, and depending upon the ID of the item, it is going to execute some code. So this thing right here is for the settings button. So if the settings button is clicked, this action happens. So now what we want to do is that we want to add in a new action for the button which we have added up over here. So if we go to the menu folder and menu main.xml, as you could see the ID of our button is nothing but the order action. So we simply copy this ID, return back to the main activity, and we go right here and we type if ID is equal to r dot ID dot order action. So what this thing does is that it basically tells that now the button which is associated with order action is being clicked. So on clicking this button, we want to make the application to perform some action, and that action is nothing but it is actually going to start a new activity. So we go right here and we comment it, the action which happens on clicking the icon on action bar. So whatever code we want to perform on the click of the button on the action bar, this code should be written right over here. So in this case, what we do is that as we want to start a new activity, we go ahead and create an intent over here. So in order to create an intent, we type intent and make sure that you import the intent. Then we type this equals new intent, and to this the first thing which we pass is going to be this, and then we pass in the name of the new activity which we have created, and that is nothing but the order.java. So we type order.class as this is a class. So basically we have created the intent, and as we want to start a new activity which is called as order, we have specified the order.class in the intent. Now the only thing which remains is that we actually want to start an activity. So we simply type start activity and finally pass in the intent which we have created. So once it is done, we are good to go, and we could also actually pass in the data from one activity to other activity by passing in a simple message into this intent. But for the sake of this tutorial, we'll be using a simple intent. So what this thing does is that whenever we click the button, it is going to start a new intent which is going to be used in order to start a new activity. And also if you wish to add new items to this, what you could do is that you could copy this, paste it over here, just change the order, change the ID, and if you want to perform some action, return back to the main activity.java, go to the on options item selected and create a new condition right over here and just paste your code here. And actually this thing should be else if. So sorry for that. I actually thought that there was nothing over here. So this first option was for the settings item, and this thing is for the item which we have added. So make sure that you have an else if over here, not an if. So once everything is done, we are good to go. So now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to save the code and we need to run this application on the emulator so as to check if this performs correctly. So in the next tutorial, we'll be running this application on the emulator, and we are going to go through the code once again so as to understand what actually happens. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we'll finally run our application and we are going to learn how we actually created this. So basically we are going to go through this application once again. So now I've started the application on the emulator, and this is the main activity screen right here. So as you could see, this is the layout and this is the icon button which we have created. So if we simply click this button, as you could see, now the new activity has been started, and you might have noticed the change in the action bar. So the previous action bar was red and this thing right here is blue. So that is because simply we have not changed the property of color. But the thing is that our action bar actually works. So if we click here, we are going to get redirected to a new activity. So basically we are successful in creating this action bar and we have successfully added up an item over here. So this thing works perfectly. Now the next thing which we do is that we go through the code once again and we learn or we revise what we have done. So the very first thing which we need to do is that I would recommend you to start a new project instead of just adding an action bar to your current project, and that is because I have messed up in the main activity.java. So basically I have actually deleted the action bar and I didn't know it. So make sure that you don't delete the action bar and you have the proper code over here. Now once you have it, the next thing which we do is that we add a dependency, and the reason for adding a dependency is that if you don't add a dependency, your application might not perform correctly. So in order to add a dependency, we go to file, then we go to the project structure, and in there under the app modules, under the modules, we have the app folder. Then we have an option which is called as dependencies, and this is the dependency which we have added. Now it was added in my Android Studio previously, so if it is not added in yours, so what you simply need to do is that you hit this plus sign right here, select a library dependency, and it is going to pop up a small window, and in there you simply need to copy this, paste it over here, then click OK, and simply select the dependency which you want to add, simply click OK and exit out of it, and this is basically going to add a dependency over here. So once you have added a dependency, we were good to go. Then the next thing which we did is that we switched to a folder which was called as menu, and inside the menu folder we actually had these items over here. So this item, which was the settings item, was previously present and we didn't make any changes here. But in order to add a new item, which we have added an item tag, we have specified an ID to it, and make sure that you have a proper ID. And if you don't specify an ID over here, your application is not going to work perfectly, because we are going to use this ID in the main activity. So once we had the ID, we have set a title to a proper string. Then we have mentioned the order, which is nothing but the order in which this thing should appear on the action bar. Then finally we have added an icon, and that is because we need to actually be able to see the item on the action bar. So we have copied an action bar image. So we have copied an image from the Android's website and we have pasted it in the drawable folder. Then we got a reference to this image, added it up here. So this is the image which appears here. Now finally we have mentioned this parameter, which is nothing but show as action. So this if room, what it does is that it is going to show the action bar if there is a room. Now this comes in handy when you have multiple options and you need to prioritize so as to decide which option should be actually present. So if room means that item is given a low priority, so if only room is available on the action bar, it is going to actually display it. Now after doing all these, what we did is that we have created a new activity which is called as the order.java. So this is the order.java class, and if we go to the layout, this thing right here is nothing but the order activity which we have created. So what we wanted to do is that whenever we clicked the button on the action bar, we should be redirected to this activity right here. So in order to make it happen, we switch back to the main activity, and there is a method which is called as the on options item selected. So what this method does is that it is going to check which item is actually being clicked or which item is actually being selected. So depending upon the selection, it is going to perform some action. So in order to identify each item uniquely, we have passed in the ID of the item. So basically the ID of the created item was order action. So we have checked the condition like if the ID is equal to the order action. So in that case, we want to execute this code, and this code right here is nothing but it is an intent to start a new activity. So as we wanted to start a new activity, we have mentioned an intent here. Then finally we have started the activity, which is nothing but this order activity right here. So as soon as we press that button on the action bar, we are going to switch to this activity, which is nothing but the order activity right here. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how the action bar actually works. So what the action bar is used for, so the action bar is basically used in whenever you want to switch to a new activity by using some item on the toolbar. So you might have noticed that there are multiple items on the toolbar on various applications, and they could be actually used to perform many functions. So in this tutorial, we have used the item on the action bar so as to switch from one activity to other activity. But you could actually perform any desired function which you wish to, and you could also add in multiple items on the action bar. And also, if you wish to pass in a message from one activity to another activity, what you simply need to do here is that you need to pass in a message which is the extra message with this intent right here, so that the data gets passed from the main activity to the order activity. So thank you. So that's it for this tutorial. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to talk about how we could add multiple items to the action bar. So in the previous tutorial we have added one item to the action bar right here, and what that item did is that whenever we clicked on or whenever we selected that particular item, this activity, which was the order.java activity, was started. So in this tutorial what we are going to do is that we are going to add in one more activity, and we are basically going to add in one more item to this menu. And whenever the second item is selected, what we want to do is that we actually want to start the new activity which we have created. So the very first thing which we do is that we create a brand new activity. So in order to create a new activity, we go to the Java folder. Then we go to this folder right here which has the Java classes for our activities. We simply right click on it, go to new, go to activity and select a blank activity. And let's name this activity as home delivery. Then finally click finish. And as you could see, the new activity is going to load up for us. So as you could see, this is the new activities XML file, and right here is the Java class for our new activity. So now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to add in some content to this activity so as to identify this activity as a separate activity from the previous one. So let's go ahead and drag a large text onto this activity. So let's drag a large text right in the middle, and let's change the text of this to, let's say, home delivery. So we go to properties and search for a property called text. So this is the property of text. So let's change this to home delivery. So we are not going to add much content to it, and that is because we just need to understand the significance of adding the second item onto the action bar. So once this activity is ready, the next task would be to add a new item to the action bar. So in order to do that, we switch to this menu, and as you could see, we actually need to add an item just as we have added over here. So the very first thing which we do before even adding the item is that we get an icon for our item. So in the previous tutorial, as I have earlier mentioned, that you could go to this website which is by Google. So design.google.com/icons/index.html, and there are a lot of icons to choose from according to your need. So in this case, as this is going to be a home delivery, we are going to select this icon right here. So when we click it, it is going to give us a bunch of options. So the option which we are looking for is the PNG. So we simply select it, and we are going to save the file. And when we open this up, we are going to have a folder. So let's go ahead and extract this folder to some location. So let's say we extract it to this new folder. So simply click OK, and your files would be extracted over there. So once you minimize this and go to the new folder, So as you could see, this thing right here is our icon. So if we open it up, as you could see, we have our icon over here. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we copy this single thing to the drawable folder. And also I would like to mention that this is not the correct way of doing it. Actually, we need to copy the entire folders which are present in this folder, and we actually need to use separate images for each of the screen resolution, but for the sake of simplicity we are just going to copy a single icon. Go to the return back to the Android Studio, go to the drawable folder and simply paste it over here, and let's name this as order icon.png, and make sure that you have the extension as png, or else you are going to have a problem. And also don't try to include a numerical value in your name of image. So once it is done, we simply hit OK, and as you could see, the image has been added. Now the next thing would be to simply add an item to the action bar. So we go to this menu underscore main.xml file. Then we simply use the items tag. So we type item. Firstly, we assign an ID to it. So we type Android ID equals @ID. And let's name this as home delivery. And let's give it a title as let's say @string, and let's name it as delivery. And the next thing and the most important thing in this case is going to be the order in category. And let's say we want to place it to the second position. So in this case, what we do is that we type order in category, and in here we are going to specify the number 2, and after it we specify the icon. So we type Android icon equals @drawable / and the name of our icon is order icon. So as you could see, the small icon just appeared right over here. So once we have the icon, the next thing which we do is that we add this final statement, which is nothing but show as action. So we type app show as action, and to this we are going to pass in the parameter as if room. So once it is done, we simply close the tag, and the only thing which remains is that we actually need to create a string resource in the strings.xml file. So we simply copy this, go to strings.xml, which is present in the values folder, and simply create a new string. So we type string name equals delivery, and also let's name it as delivery. So once it is done, we are good to go. So now the only thing which remains is that we actually need to start the second activity on clicking the icon or the second icon. So in order to make changes, we switch back to the main activity, and as you could see, this is nothing but the method which is called as on options item selected, and we have added the case for the second for one of the buttons or one of the items on the action bar. Now we actually need to add in one more case for the second button. So we go right here and we type else if id equals r.id dot, and the name of our or the ID of our new item is nothing but home delivery. So we type home delivery right over here. So what this thing is going to do is that it is going to capture the action which is related to the second icon. And what we do is that whenever the second icon or whenever the second item is clicked, we actually want to start a new activity which we have just created, and that activity is nothing but the home delivery activity. So in order to do that, we create a new intent. So we type intent equals new intent. So this is nothing new. We are just copying the line from the above line and making a little bit of changes. So here we are going to have the name of the new activity, which is nothing but home delivery. So we type home delivery dot class. So once we have the intent, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to start the activity. So we type start activity and just pass in the intent inside it. So once it is done, we are good to go. Now we could save the code and we could run our application on the emulator so as to check if this performs correctly. So as you could see, the application is up and running on the emulator, and this is our first icon right here and this is our second icon right here, and they actually appeared in the exact order as we have specified. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to test if on clicking the second icon the application switches to the new activity, which is the order activity, or sorry, the home delivery activity. So when we select this option right here, as you could see, it has redirected us to a new activity called home delivery. So if we switch back and if we click the first icon which we have created, it is going to redirect us to the order activity. So as you could see, we have added multiple items to the action bar, and we could actually go ahead and add in as many number of items as we want unless and until they actually fit over here. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to add multiple items to the action bar and how to perform an action by selecting one of these items, so that whenever we select these items we could actually switch to a new activity by starting a new intent. And also by using intents, what you could do is that you could take the data which is present on this activity. So whenever we click this button right here, your data gets transferred to this activity right here. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to add multiple items to a single activity. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are basically going to learn about the card view. So if you don't understand what a card view is, so this is exactly what a card view looks like. So basically a card is nothing but it's like a container in which you could have an image and you could have a text right over here. So basically you could have as many components in a single card as you want. So but for the sake of this tutorial we are going to learn how to create a card view which looks something like this. So basically a card view is nothing but a component which actually looks like card, and you could add in other components to it. So for the sake of this tutorial, what we are going to do is that we are going to create a new Android Studio project. So select the option as new Android Studio project. Let's name this project as card application. Simply click next and select API level 15. Click next, select a blank activity, next, and finish. So basically in this tutorial we are going to create a simple card view. So we are going to need a few images. So I have downloaded a few images from the internet, and you could also download the image of your choice so that we could embed that image inside a card. And also one more thing which I would like to mention here is that I am using the Android Studio 1.5, and actually by the time you are watching this tutorial, newer versions of Android Studio might be available. So make sure that you always update your Android Studio versions to the newer versions which are available, and that is because the newer versions of Android actually have a much better performance as compared to the older ones. So the emulator is going to run a bit fast. Also you are not going to have the rendering problems like this, and there is a lot of stuff which is improved in the newer versions of Android Studio. So now once our project loads up, the next thing which we need to do even before starting a project is that we actually need to add in a few dependencies. So in order to add a dependency, what we do is that we go to file, go to the project structure, and in there go to the app under the modules. So basically when you go there you will have multiple tabs over here. So in our case we are going to select the dependencies tab, and in there we need to add a dependency for a card view. So in order to add a dependency, what you could simply do is that you could select this option right here which says a plus, and
within these three options we are going to go with the library dependency. So simply select this option, and here we are going to search for something called as com.android.support, and when we typed it and when we are done typing it, we simply click this icon right here. So basically we will be presented with a bunch of options, and within these options we want to select this thing which is called as the card view. So once we have selected card view, simply click OK, and what this thing is going to do is that it is actually going to add in a compile dependency for card view, so that whenever we try to run a card view, it is actually going to work, and your application is not going to work if you don't add this dependency right here. So make sure that you have added the card view dependency in your project. So once we have added the dependency, we could go ahead and we could design our card view. So after this we click OK. So when you have added the dependency, what happens is that your project is automatically going to sync, and if it does not sync, what you need to do is that you need to click this button right here. So what happens is that whenever you add a dependency, the Gradle files which are present over here, they get updated and they need to be synced with the project files. So once we are done with this, we are good to go. Now let's go ahead and create a card view. So before doing that, we are going to delete this thing right here, which is nothing but the hello world. So simply delete it. So once everything is loaded up, what we are going to do is that we are going to delete this relative layout right here. So simply delete it. And now the next thing which we do is that we are going to add in a card view over here. So in order to add card view, we type android dot support dot v7 dot widget dot card view, and now let's go ahead and close the tag for the card view. And basically we need to define a certain properties inside our card view. So let's go ahead and type xmlns android equals, and in this we type http://schemas.android.com/apk/resources/android, and basically these are nothing but some prerequisites for defining the card view. So one more prerequisite which we need here is going to be xmlns, let's name it as card view equals http, and actually there should be a colon here, and inside it we type http://schemas.android.com/apk/resources-auto. Okay, so once we are done with this, the next thing which we do is that we add a basic ID to this card view. So we type android ID equals, in double quotes, at plus ID slash, let's give it an ID as card underscore view. So once we have given the ID, the next thing which we do is that we set the layout width and height. So what basically we want to do is that we want to fill up the card so that it covers the entire screen. In case of width, so we type width equals match parent, and for the height we are going to type in, let's say, 200 dps, because I think that is going to be sufficient. So as you could see, as soon as we have specified the dimensions for the width and height, as you could see, our card view appears right over here. So this basically is nothing but our card view. Now we need to customize it a little bit. So basically what we are going to do is that we are going to leave a margin of 5 dps from all the sides. So we type android layout margin equals 5 dps, and as you could see, we have not yet specified the margin from top, bottom, left or right. So what margin does is that it basically leaves a margin which is specified from all the directions. So layout margin equals 5 dps means that there is a margin of 5 dps from all the four sides. So once we are done with this, the next thing which we do is that we use a property which is called as card corner radius. So as you could see, this card right here appears to be a bit edgy. So there are 4 edges right over here and they appear to be sharp, but actually if you have a look at a physical card, it actually has some rounded edges over here. So in order to add rounded edges over here, what we do is that we type in card underscore view, and the property is called as card corner radius, and we are going to set this equal to, let's say, 4 dps. So I'm not sure if you are able to notice it, but now actually we have rounded edges over here. So basically what this property does is that it basically converts the edges into circles, which has the center point here and it has the radius like 4 dp. Now if we make it 40 dps, as you could see, you are able to see much rounded edges, but this appears to be a bit weird, so we are going to change it back to 4 dps. Okay, so now once it is done, we are good to go and our card is actually ready. So now once we are done with this, we are good to go and our card is actually ready. And now the only thing which remains is that we actually need to add in some contents into this card so that we are actually able to see something on the card. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to create a card view. So in the next tutorial, we are going to add in the image and the text to this card view so as to make it look attractive. And one more thing which I would like to remind you is that make sure that you have added the compile dependency for the card, and the reason for that is that currently in Android Studio 1.5 the dependency is not automatically added. So make sure that you add a compile dependency for a card, or else your project is not going to work. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to finally complete the design for our card view application. So in the previous tutorial we have basically created the layout for the card view. So this blue part right here on the screen is nothing but the card view which we are working with. Now in this tutorial we are going to add in the text as well as the image to our card view. So now let's go ahead and add the text and image to the card view. So the first thing which we need to do is that inside the card view or within the card view we need to create a layout. And the reason for creating layout in this is that what we want to do is that we want to design the card view in such a way that we have the image right here and we need to have a text right here present over here. So in order to do that, what we need to do is that we actually need to add in a layout to this card view itself so that we could align the items inside the card view in an appropriate manner. So what we do is that we go in between these two card view tags and we create a linear layout. So we type linear layout, and let's say the width is going to be match parent, and let's say the height is going to be fill parent. So once we have the linear layout, what we are going to do is that basically we are going to add in the image view as well as the text view inside it. So before doing that, one more property which we need to add to this linear layout is going to be the orientation. So as we want to orient this thing to a vertical, so we type Android orientation equals vertical. So once the linear layout has been added, the only thing which we need to do is that we need to add in an image view and a text view. But for the image view, we actually need an image present over here. So what I have done is that I have downloaded this image. Right here, which is nothing but it is present in a PNG format. So this is an image for a pizza. So what we are going to do is that we are simply going to copy this image, return back to Android Studio, go to the drawable folder and simply paste our image right over here, and let's name it as image.png. then simply let's click OK, and if we open it up, as you could see, this is our image right here, and I've purposely selected an image which is like horizontal, and that is because our card is going to be oriented horizontally. So if we switch back here we are going to add in an image over here. So in order to add up an image, let's go ahead and add an image view to this. So we type image view, and the layout width in this case is going to be match parent, and for the layout height we are going to specify it as 0 dps. And this line of code is going to give us an error, but it is going to be resolved soon. So now the next thing which we do is that we actually add a layout weight to it. So we type Android layout underscore weight, and let's mention this as 1.0. and as you could see, now the error has been removed. Now the next thing which we do is that we want to add one more property which is called as scale type. So we type Android scale type equals, and let's make it as center crop. So once everything is done, the only thing which remains is that we need to add an image to it. So we type Android background equals add drawable, and the name of our image is nothing but image. So as you could see, now the image has been added to our layout. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we need to add a text. So simply exit out of this image view, go right here and add a text view. So we type in text view, and the layout width for this is going to be match parent as well, and the layout height is going to be wrap content. Now let's go ahead and specify a few parameters. So let's basically set up a text for it. So we type Android text, and let's say this text says pizza. So as you could see, the text appeared right over here. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we actually need to mention the text in the strings.xml file and later have a reference to it, but for the sake of this tutorial we are just basically going to add the text right over here. So once we have the text added, the next thing which we do is that we are going to set a margins to the left as well as bottom. So we type layout margin left, and we are going to set this thing to 5 dps. And for the layout margin bottom, we are also going to set it equal to 5 dps. So this is going to make our layout look a bit tidy. So let's go ahead and also make this text look a bit bigger. So now the next thing which we do is that we actually make this text look a bit bold. So let's go ahead and type in Android. Let's say we assign a color as 000000. So that is going to be a black color. And now let's go ahead and actually make the text look bold. So we type Android text style equals, actually this should be style. So we type text style equals bold. So as you could see, this is our card view created right over here. So basically once we are done with this, we save the code and we are going to run this application. And I'm basically going to run this application on my device. That is because my emulator has turned very slow. So I'm going to save the code and I'm going to run my application on the device. So what I did is that I basically ran this application on my device, and I actually took a snapshot of my device screen, and this is what our application looks like. And basically we should have left some margin on the top, and that is because the card view is actually getting covered by this action bar right here. So the simple fix for this would be to add a margin to the top right here so that the card appears a little bit to the bottom, so that you are able to have a look at the card in a much more clear way. But basically we are successful in designing the card. So this is our card right here, and as you could see, it has rounded edges. It also has a shadow effect to it. So basically we have added in an image and the text over here, but you could actually configure, or you could actually design cards according to your needs. So if you want something else in this card, so let's say you want this text to be present at the center along with the image, so you could also do that. And you could also actually add listeners to the card, so that whenever we click the card, we could be redirected to some new activity or something like that. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to actually create cards. So the only thing which you need to take care of is that you need to add a dependency even before starting your application. And for the sake of this tutorial, we have added a single card right over here. So what you could do is that you could go ahead and add multiple cards to a single layout. So what you do is that create a layout first, and into that layout you add in the cards which you want, so that you could use these cards. And also what you could do is that you could actually save this card as a template, so that we could reuse this design of a card as many number of times as we want. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are basically going to learn about the scroll views. So in order to understand scroll views, what we are going to do here is that we are going to create a completely brand new Android application or completely brand new Android Studio project, so that we could incorporate a scroll view into it. And in the scroll view, what we are going to do is that we are going to try to add some items to the scroll view, so that we are actually able to scroll through the entire thing. So the first thing which we need to do is that we need to start a new Android Studio project. So we go right here and select the new Android Studio project, and let's name this as my scroll app. Let's click next, and let's select the API level 15. Click next, and in this case what we are going to do is that instead of selecting the blank activity, we are going to go with the scrolling activity which is present right over here. So we simply select this thing right here which is called as the scrolling activity, then click next. Let's name this as scrolling activity. Click finish, and our project is going to load up for us, and we are going to have a scrolling activity in our screen right now. So once your project is loaded up, this is what we get. So if we switch to the design view, it is going to take a bit to load up the user interface, and I think we have rendering problems here. So basically when I restarted Android Studio, finally I was able to get the scroll view right over here. And what this thing does, and if you run this application right now, scroll view is going to work. So they have added a bunch of text here. So actually a scroll view is something like whenever your item does not fit on the screen, so what it does is that it basically allows us to scroll through this so that we could access whatever is actually present at the bottom. So this is what a scroll view basically looks like, and we are basically going to modify the scroll view to our extent. And basically we are going to modify the scroll view according to us. So the first thing which we do is that we go to this app folder, go to the resources, layout, and this thing right here is nothing but the design of this action bar thing like here, and this menu icon right here. So the first thing which we do is that we delete this message icon right here. So make sure that you delete it. Okay, so once it is deleted, the next thing which we do is that we go here and we also delete this text view. So if we switch to the text view right here, as you could see, this thing right here is the text view which we have. And instead of this text view, what we do is that we create a card view right over here, and basically we are going to keep on adding cards to the scroll view, so that when we scroll down we are able to see multiple cards instead of the text view. So let's go ahead and delete this text view right here, and let's go ahead and add card views. But before adding card views, we actually need to add in a dependency. So let's go to file, and let's go to project structure, then let's go to the app under modules and select dependencies and add in a dependency for a card. So we search for Android, sorry, this should be actually com.android.support, then click OK. Sorry, we click here, and then we select this dependency for a card view. Simply click OK and click OK one more time, and your dependency should be added. So once you add a dependency, your project is going to sync up. so give it a bit time, and as soon as it is done syncing, we will be ready and we could finally add in our card view. Okay, so now I think the project has been synced. Now let's go ahead and add in the card view. So in order to add in a card view, now even before adding a card view, what we do is that we add a linear layout to this thing right here. So basically we have a scroll view. Now to this scroll view we are going to add in a linear layout even before adding a card view. So let's go ahead and type in linear layout, and let's say the width is going to be match parent and height is going to be wrap content, let's say, and in there we are going to add in the card view. So in order to add in card view, we type android dot support dot v7 dot card view, and the width is going to be match parent, and the height of this thing is going to be 200 dps, and we are going to specify a few more properties. So the first thing which we specify is xmlns. So this would be a revision for you so as to how to design a card view. So we type android, and let's specify http. This should actually be equals http, and we are going to set it to this card view equals http resources auto. Okay, so now once this thing is done, we basically add an id to the card view. So we type id equals @+id. Let's name it as card1. So once we have the id, the next thing which we do is that we add a layout margin. So we type layout margin, set it equal to 5 dp, and now let's go ahead and also add in the card corner radius. So we type card view, and the property is called as card corner radius, and we are going to specify this thing to 4 dps. So once it is done, we could click this button of preview, and as you could see, the card has been added over here. Now we actually need to define the image and the text over here. So let's go ahead and create a linear layout. So basically we are going to create a linear layout. In that linear layout we are going to create a card, and within the card we are again going to create a linear layout. So we type linear layout, width is going to be equal to match parent, and for the height we are going to set it equal to let's say fill parent, and for the layout height we are going to specify it to fill parent. And actually we need to mention a closing tag over here. So we go right here and then type in linear layout, and also make sure that you end this thing right here. Okay, so now once we are done with this, we are good to go. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to add in the orientation for this. So we type android orientation equals vertical, and let me arrange it properly or else it is going to cause a confusion. So I'll take this back. And okay, so now once we have the linear layout, we could go ahead and add the image view and the text view over here. So initially we add the image view, and the layout width for this is going to be match parent, and the layout height for this is going to be 0 dps, and then we add the property which is called as the layout weight. So we type layout weight but inside this tag, or else it is going to give you an error. So we type android layout weight and set it equal to 1.0, and after this we add a property which is called as scale type. So we type android scale type equals center crop, and now let's go ahead and actually add an image to it. So I will simply copy this image which we have, and basically for the sake of example we are going to use in the same image inside each card view. So I'll just paste it over here. Let's name it as image.png, and now let's go ahead and add the image. So we type android background equals add drawable image. So as you could see, now the image is added over here. Now the only thing which we need to add here is going to be the text view. So we go right here, type in text view. Let's say the width is going to be match parent, height is going to be wrap content, and finally we specify text here. So we type Android text, let's say pizza again, and as you could see, now our card view is getting a shape. So after this we specify margins. So we type layout margin bottom as 5 dps and layout margin left to be 5 dps as well. So we type layout margin left as 5 dps. Okay, so once this is done, we are good to go, and we have added the card view right over here. So now the only thing which we need to do so as to add in multiple card views is that we are going to copy this tag right here which says card view, and we are going to simply paste it multiple number of times. So let's go ahead and copy this thing, and let's go right here and let's paste it. And as you could see, now we have an error, and that is because in the second card view we need to change this thing to 2, so you cannot have multiple IDs over here. So now once we have it, we actually have 2 card views. Now let's go ahead and add one more. So I simply paste this thing again and change this thing to, let's say, 3. So now once we are done with this, we are pretty much done with designing the card view. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to run this thing on our device so as to check if this thing performs correctly. So I simply save the code and run this on my device. And actually when I tried to run this application on my device, I got an error over here. So what we simply need to do is that we need to delete this floating action button, and the reason why this error actually occurred is that we have deleted the small message icon which was present. So make sure that you delete it, and after deleting it your code should actually work fine. So I save the code again and I run this thing on my device, and actually when I tried to run this application on my device, what I got was that I actually got only one card view over here. And the reason for that is that if you go to the first linear layout, the linear layout is actually oriented horizontally by default, and in order to fit in multiple card views into it, we actually want to arrange it into vertical orientation. So we fix the error by typing Android orientation equals vertical, and as you could see, as soon as we type this thing to be vertical, it actually added up multiple things onto the layout. So again I am going to save this thing and I am going to run this application on my device. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to basically create a scroll view. So basically while creating a scroll view, we select the scroll view option when we start the project, and then finally to this component right here we are going to add in the things which we want to actually display in a scrolling fashion. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn how to basically create a simple accelerometer which basically displays the X, Y and Z coordinates in your phone. So basically we have an inbuilt sensor into our phone which basically captures the X, Y and Z coordinates, and the location of these coordinates could be actually used in order to design an accelerometer. So in this tutorial basically what we are going to do is that we are going to learn how to exactly extract the X, Y and Z coordinates so that they could be used in our application. So the very first thing which we do is that we create a brand new application for this. So let's go ahead and create a new project. So let's name this application as my XYZ app. Then let's click next and select the minimum API level to be 15. Click next, select a blank activity, click next, and let the name of your main activity be main activity. Then finally click finish, and your project should be loaded up for you. Now the thing which we are going to do here is that we are going to use a few inbuilt method so as to basically access the sensor which is inbuilt in our phone, and basically we are going to use the same sensor in order to display the values of X, Y and Z. So there are a few methods which we are going to use here, and they are actually inbuilt in this and they are actually inbuilt in Android, and we are going to take advantage of the same methods. So once our application is loaded up, let's go to the content main.xml, and here we want to actually display the coordinates. So the very first thing which we do is that we remove this hello world, and instead of this we take a brand new text view. Let's say we take a large text view, so we simply drag it and drop it over here, and let's say we assign an ID to this. So let's say the ID of this is acceleration. Sorry, the ID should be acceleration, not the text. So acceleration, and let's say the current text is like X empty, Y is empty, and let's say Z is also empty. So this is the by default text which is going to appear on our application, and actually we need to set the values of these three things on our application by using the sensor. So now the next thing which we do is that as most of the code is going to be Java, we switch to the main activity.java, then we go right below here, right after the set content view, and basically we are going to type in the code over here which is basically going to access the sensor and display the values of X, Y and Z. Now even before doing that, we need to set up a few things. So the first thing which we need to set up is that we need to set up a sensor. So we go right here and then we type in sensor, and actually we need to import it, and it is automatically imported in Android Studio as soon as we add it. Now let's name this object as accelerometer. So once we have named this thing, the next thing which we do is that we set a sensor manager so as to access the methods inside the sensor. So we type sensor, sensor manager. Let's name this thing as SM. Now once we have the sensor manager, let's also go ahead and create a text view. So we type text view, and let's name this thing as acceleration. So once we have these three things, the next thing which we do is that we go inside on create right below the set content view, and here we are going to use the sensor manager. So we type sm equals, then we type in sensor manager so as to typecast it, then we type get system service, and this is basically used in order to get the system service, and in there in the parameters we actually need to mention which service we want to access. So we type in sensor service, as we want to access the service of sensor, we use the sensor service. So that's basically the main significance of the sensor manager. The sensor manager actually manages the entire sensor, which basically gives us an access to the system service, and the system service to which we want access is nothing but the sensor service. So once we have the access to sensor service, now let's go ahead and write the code after this. So the next thing which we do is that we type in accelerometer, which is nothing but the sensor object, and make sure that you have different names for the text view and sensor. So for text view we have acceleration, and for the sensor we have accelerometer. So we type accelerometer equals sm, which is nothing but the object of the sensor manager. Then we type this dot get default sensor, and the sensor which we want here is nothing but the accelerometer. So in order to get a reference to it, we type sensor dot type, and the type of sensor we want is nothing but accelerometer. So we type sensor dot type accelerometer. So now we have reference to the accelerometer. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we need to go here in the activity, and we want to make it extend, and we want this thing to implement the sensor event listener. So we type in implements, and after implements we type in sensor event listener. So once this thing is done, basically we have implemented the sensor event listener, and we actually need to implement the methods from this. So in order to do that, we go right below here, then we type control I, and we are going to basically implement these two methods which are present over here. So we simply click OK, and the two methods should be added right over here. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to register the listener. So in order to do that, what we do is that we again go right over here after the type accelerometer, and here we type sm.register listener, and to this we pass in the reference to the current object. So we pass this, then we type accelerometer, so basically we pass in the accelerometer, then we pass in the sensor manager, so we type sensor, this should be capital, so sensor manager, and we set the sensor delay. So basically we want to set the sensor delay to normal, so we type in sensor manager dot sensor delay normal. So once we have set the delay, the next thing which we do is that we actually get a reference to the text view which we have. So we type in acceleration, so make sure that you select the text view, so we type acceleration equals, and then we get a reference, so we typecast it, so we type text view, then we type find view by id to get a reference, then we type r.id.acceleration. So once we are done with this, the next thing which we do is that we finally need to set the text of this thing. So in order to do that, we go to the newly implemented methods, which is nothing but the sensor changed method, to add in the code to basically change the, what you could say, coordinates of x, y and z. So we type acceleration dot set text. So set text is basically a method to set the text of the text view. So we type x, and to this we actually want to set the value of x, so we type event dot values, and we actually want to mention the value which is stored in the 0th position for x, and after this we set the value of y and z respectively. So for setting up the value of y, we type y, then again give a plus sign, and again type event, then we type dot values. This time we set this one to 1, again give a plus sign, and finally we set the value of z. So we type z colon, go outside it, type in plus event dot values, and we set this value equal to 2, so that it gets the value from 2. So basically what we have done here is that the values for x, y and z are actually stored in events.values, and at 0 we have the value of x, at 1 we have the value of y, and at 2 we have the value of z. So what this thing basically does is that it basically assigns the value to the text view which we actually have, and the name of our text view is nothing but acceleration. So we actually got the reference to this text view right over here. So basically we got a reference by find view by id, and we have typecasted it to a text view. So now once it is done, we save the code and we run our application on the device. And I have not tested this application on the emulator, so make sure that you test this one on a device. So we save the code and we run our application on the device. And even before running our application on the device, what we need to do is that we need to add in a /n right before each and every x, y and z, and that is because we actually want to display this thing on a new line. So if you don't give this, there is no technical issue, but the only thing which you'll face is that this thing right here would be actually displayed on the same line. So once we are done with this, we save it and we run it on the device. So as you could see, the application is now up and running on the emulator, and this is what I'm able to have a look at. So basically we have the coordinates for x, y and z, and it is constantly updating. So even if I keep it stable, it is still showing me a little bit of fluctuation. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to basically create a sensor in your application. So basically we have created a new project, and what we did is that we basically use the sensor manager in our application and the sensor to basically get the reference to the accelerometer. So basically we have created the sensor manager object, we have used the default sensor, and to this we have passed in the accelerometer so that we could get a reference to the accelerometer. Then finally we have extracted the values from it, and we have simply assigned the values to the text view which we have created. And also we have made our main activity implement the sensor event listener so as to add two implemented methods. So the first one was on accuracy changed, and we have not used this method. We have used the second method which says on sensor changed. So this is like basically a sensor listener which constantly keeps on listening to the sensor. So whenever the sensor notices change, these values actually get updated. So that's it for this tutorial, and so thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.